Hey friends, how are you doing? I hope that you are having a beautiful morning, a beautiful afternoon or evening, wherever you might be as you're watching this video. And if you and I have not yet met, I'm Safia. I'm the Chief Shift Stirrer at New Habits, and I am really devoted to helping people find their way to their comfort zones rather than out of their comfort zones. I believe wholeheartedly that if we are able to cultivate or build our careers and our lives on a solid foundation of self-love, of self-acceptance and self-compassion, that we can create lives in which we have reservoirs, deep reservoirs of resilience and resourcefulness and well-being, so we can take advantage of the opportunities that come our way, and we can deal with the challenges that might arise from time to time. In this video, I want to share with you two key ideas that come out of a book called The Big Leap. And The Big Leap is written by a guy by the name of Gay Hendricks. And I really love the book in general. But these two ideas, I think, are really significant for all of us. The first idea that I want to share with you is the idea that each and every single one of us tends to have an upper limit. We might not be aware of our upper limit, but there is good value in spending time learning about our upper limit and seeing where it is coming into play in all the different parts of our lives. We have an upper limit for how much joy and how much abundance and how much goodness we can make welcome in our lives, in our financial lives, in our physical lives, in our well-being, in our relationships, in our social lives. We just have an idea that we only have so much goodness that we're entitled to, and that when more than that goodness comes our way, we end up doing something that sabotages it, and we end up destroying that goodness or squandering it or completely eliminating it from our lives. I know that there's been times in my life on my journey where I have quarreled with people for no good reason, other than the fact that things were going so well. I could always find a logical reason as to why it was happening. But when I really sit and I reflect, I realized all of these logical reasons are really nothing more than fabrications. I've had similar experiences in my financial and professional reality when things were going really well and going a bit better than I had expected it to go. There's this weird, strange feeling that arises inside of me, and I start operating the world from that feeling. And I end up doing things that is quite destructive and that takes me away from the benefits that were unfolding in my life. And I wonder if for you, you have a similar pattern of really coming up against your upper limit and then starting to do things that end up taking away all that goodness that really wants to be in your life. If that is real for you, my suggestion is that you start understanding what it is that or what your upper limit is, and to start understanding what it is that you start doing when you start reaching your upper limit, and to start thinking about the journey you might have to go on internally so that you can move that upper limit incrementally or exponentially. Now, each and every single one of us has got something that we are really good at. And in most instances, we all have a suite of things that we are really good at. Not just good at in the sense that we are really and truly exceptionally competent at it, but we're good at it in the sense that when we're busy doing those things, we're in a state of joy, in a state of delight, in a state of bliss. And what Gay Hendricks is speaking about in the book, The Big Leap, is that if we can start becoming more clear about what these things are that give us joy, that give us bliss, that really allow us to flourish and to feel alive, if we know what these things are, we can start creating our lives around them. And if the vast majority of our lives are spent in the pursuit of these things, and this is not hedonistic, This is really about living in a way that is in alignment with what is best for you. And his contention in the book is that if each and every single one of us can do that, we have really and truly got the world at our feet, and we can create amazing, amazing, beautiful lives for ourselves. He talks about the 4 zones from which we typically create our lives, and from which we typically create our careers. And because we typically create our careers from these 4 zones, they impact our lives very, very materially. And they either play with our upper limits, and they reinforce our upper limits. So let me take you through what the 4 zones are. The first zone he speaks about is the zone of incompetence. Now, this isn't just the kind of incompetence where you're trying your hand at something new and you're still busy learning and figuring it out. This is where it really doesn't matter how much time you devote to this particular thing. It's not going to get any better, or if it gets better, it's still something where when you're doing it really poorly. There's a world of people around you who can do it better than you do. And the way you feel when you're doing this work is really dispirited. You're feeling heavy and lethargic, and you're really not having a good time when you are spending time in the zone of incompetence. Now, in my world, numerical things is definitely in my world of incompetence. I really struggle to understand stuff in the space. And even when I do understand it, I understand it at a level that is just got me hanging on by the tips of my fingers. And everyone around me, and I do mean everyone around me, is better at it. It is really important to acknowledge that everybody has something that lives in their zone of incompetence, and this is not something to be embarrassed or ashamed of. This is about really understanding that there is something that you're just never going to flourish doing. And if you're doing a lot of this, the impact on your life, the impact on your heart, your mind, your soul, and the way in which you socialize with the people around you isn't going to be good. And you've got to find ways now to start thinking about, how can I just ditch this kind of stuff completely? What are the ways in which I can outsource this, if this is all possible? And if you're in a job where you're having to do these things the vast majority of the time, it's necessary for you to start looking for another job. The next zone that he talks about is the zone of competence. This is where you start doing something well enough to be able to hold your own and to not be fleeced by anyone in this space, but you're not really exceptional at it. And there are still people who do it better than you, and you know, it doesn't really turn you on. It's okay, you know. Example for me, for instance, is I've had a deep reluctance around cooking biryani. And in 2020, in the lockdown, I tried my hand at it for the first time. It came out really, really nice. And then I've tried it over a number of other occasions, and the results were kind of all over the show. I can make a pot of biryani. I can make a decent pot of biryani. No one's going to complain about my pot of biryani, but no one's going to be doing cartwheels because of my biryani either. And you know what? As much as it is satisfying to me to know that I can do it, it's not really inspiring me. And I don't lie awake at night thinking, how can I make more biryani? And how can I make more biryani making welcome in my life? It's not part of my jam, right? The next zone that he speaks about in the book is the zone of excellence. And the zone of excellence is one in which we must be really, really careful, because in the zone of excellence, we are able to do things really well. We are really, really expert in this space. We are kind of sought after, and we can make a really, really decent living or build a really great brand for ourselves around this kind of work. The challenge is, though, that even though we are really good at this work, it's not necessarily the kind of work that is inspiring us. It's not setting us alight. And there is still a degree of us having to show up as a version of ourselves to this work, as a version of us having to set our lives aside so that we can attend to this work, rather than us feeling deeply connected to ourselves when we are busy doing this work. And so each and every single one of us has got stuff where we are seen to be the experts, the go-to person. Each and every single one of us has got stuff that we're competent at. And it's very important for us to start understanding what these things are, and so we can start understanding how we want to respond to these things. The challenge for us when we're in our zone of excellence is that because we're so good at it, and because people give us positive feedback for it, and because we're able to make a decent living of it, we might buy into the idea that this is as good as it's going to get for us. But that is simply not true. And if you follow the advice in the book, there is definitely another zone that we can move to, and this is our zone of genius. The zone of genius is where we start becoming really and truly aware of things that we are not just exceptionally good at, but where we're good at it, or maybe even not yet good at it, but we enjoy it so much that we are willing to do what it takes to make it a part of our day-to-day lives. We experience flow when we're doing this. We're in our element when we're doing this kind of work and doing these kinds of activities. And what is so beautiful about when we're in our zone of genius is that it doesn't feel as if it is an intrusion in our lives or it's taking us away from our lives. We're able to live with it, and we're able to integrate it in our lives, so much so that there is no part of us that feels separate. There's no part of us that we feel as though we have to put it away for later on. We can really and truly be ourselves when we are with this work. Now, I recognize, and as does Gay Hendricks in the book recognize, that this might not be a quick transition for all of us. This might be quite a journey for us, but the payoff of the journey is so, so worthwhile. So what is required for us to make our way to our zone of genius? What is required for us to make our way to our zone of genius is first and foremost to know what we enjoy, to know what we like, and to know what we want. To have a real sense of having a process to plug into ourselves and having a habit of reflecting after we've done a degree of work. There's this idea of us going into a state of deliberate practice rather than naive practice. So this is deliberate practice is you do some work and then you spend some time reflecting on, how did I experience this work? Did I enjoy it? Is it something that I wanted to cultivate more of? What did I learn? And with that reflection, you not only integrate the learning from the actual task that you've performed or the work that you've performed, but you also start to understand how you are relating to that work. Now, it is useful to understand that in the book, Gay Hendricks doesn't only speak about going through this process with your professional pursuits. It's about going through this process with all the different parts of your life. It's about going through this process in relation to who you socialize with, where you socialize, how you spend your time in the different parts of your life, so that you can start picking up the evidence of what it is that you really, really enjoy, what it is that you love doing so much that you want to do more and more of it, and that you are willing to start walking away from things that is not serving you as well as things that are in your zone of genius. Now, the idea here is, as I said before, not to make a quick leap into your zone of genius. This is a trial and error process. This is a process of saying to yourself, first and foremost, am I willing to just put 10% more of my day into being with these kinds of activities, experimenting with this, trying out that? And when you've done that, it's finding all those different pieces of your life that really, really feel as though all of them make you feel great. So what is really, really critical is to spend time exploring what it is that you're really good at and start looking at things in an unconventional way. Don't only look at your professional life as in, this is what I studied and these are the jobs I've had. Maybe you speak different languages, and maybe you have a particular language that you love speaking, and this can become something that is part of your zone of genius. Or maybe the act of learning language in and of itself is part of your genius. I know for myself that language is something that I really struggle with, and I admire people who take to genius or take to language so beautifully. And I'm always astonished by people who, they're quite dismissive of this particular skill that they have. So one of the things that is very useful when we're talking about a zone of genius is to start thinking about the things that people praise you for, but you don't really think it's all that special, because the amount of effort that you have to put into doing this is so minimal in relation to what other people have to do. So maybe that is your zone of genius, or maybe that's the clues to your zone of genius. You may have hobbies and sports that you really are just good at, that you really just enjoy, that you really just are lit up. Maybe you have a love for skateboarding, and how does skateboarding factor into your zone of genius? Maybe you love writing, maybe you love cooking, maybe there are these untraditional things or these non-traditional things that if you were to really, really look at all of them, there might be some clues for what is possible for you. What is really important is that you become alert and alive to what it is that you're good at. The challenge for most of us is that when we're good at something, we don't spend too much time acknowledging and registering that we're good at it. What are the things that keep you up at night? Not in a bad, dread way, in an excited way. What are the things that if you could do more of would just make your day? What are the things that even if you weren't paid to do it, you would love to do it and spend time doing it? It is also important to start recognizing that maybe our passage into our zone of genius doesn't necessarily happen in a way where we are generating an income. There might be a payoff over time. The world the universe tends to conspire with us when we are doing things that really energize us and lift our spirits. But what is important is that we don't talk ourselves out of doing it because our logical mind, our upper limit says, no, 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 don't be doing this at this moment in time because you need to focus on the things that generate an income. You don't have to make this a dominant part of your day. Make it just a part of your day. Make it part of your week, make it part of your month, make it part of your year, just so that you can start making all these things that are genius to you part of your life. I hope that you have value from this. And if you're interested, go and get yourself a book, get the cliff notes to the book. It is a really beautiful book. It really guides you and really talks about the ways in which we have to slay the dragons inside of our mind, the monsters in our mind that keep us beholden to our upper limit, and the journey, the arc that we have to go on so we can make our way into our zone of genius. I believe that we are all here to do things and to contribute in a way that doesn't take away from who we are. But in order to do that, we've got to know what works for us. Time spent reflecting is always well spent. And so I hope that you are able to see some of the wisdom that is in the book, apply it to your life, and to reap some of the benefits that he promises. In fact, he guarantees these benefits in the book. So that's my story for today, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.